Hawaii and the rest of the world had to pause and hit the reset button during the COVID-19 pandemic. While uncertainty remains, there's optimism we'll emerge from this crisis stronger. Communities across the state are lending a helping hand to those in need, proving we're better together. But the work isn't done yet, as we continue to figure out a new normal. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of What's It Going to Take? Hawaii's Resilience Through the Pandemic on Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. There's no roadmap to navigate us through the COVID-19 pandemic. Hardship has come in many forms, including stay-at-home orders, isolation from loved ones, and lost jobs. Hawaii now has one of the highest jobless rates in the nation, with more than 250,000 people filing unemployment claims. According to data from the Hawaii Community Foundation's Change Framework, 29% of residents did not have enough savings to weather 3 months of financial emergency. But during this crisis, communities and organizations have jumped into action, offering support in a variety of ways. Some of those organizations are represented tonight as we ask, what's it going to take? Hawaii's resilience through the pandemic. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Our guests tonight are all joining us via the internet. Michelle Kauhani is the Senior Vice President of Community Grants and Initiatives for the Hawaii Community Foundation. She's the former president and CEO of the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement and is a beneficiary of the Hawaiian Homelands Trust, residing in the Kaupea homestead on Oahu. Karen Tan is the president and CEO of Child and Family Services. She's also a licensed clinical social worker. Last year, she co-founded the Safe Spaces and Workplaces Initiative, aimed at ending workplace sexual harassment in Hawaii. Josh Stanbro is Honolulu's Chief Resilience Officer and the Executive Director of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. He was raised in Northern California on an apple farm. He moved to Hawaii Island after college to join his family, where he helped build their off-the-grid home. And Dr. Scott McCaffrey, who contracted and recovered from COVID-19. He practices occupational medicine in Ewa Beach, West Oahu. Let me start with you, Dr. Scott McCaffrey. What was that like? How did you catch it? And what was it like to be sick like that?
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. First of all, thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this because number one, I like to share my experience and also maybe spread the word to everyone out there that those of you who have had the virus already. I'm a strong proponent of testing, and I would encourage everyone to get tested to see if you've at least had it, because there's a lot you can do to help with the epidemic. But short story long, I contracted this in the mountains of Colorado, up in one of the ski areas, and I'm pretty sure I got it while I was on a closed-in gondola with some skiers from Italy and Spain who were there competing in a snowboarding competition. And it's like no virus I've ever had in my life. It was very, very insidious at first. I just felt a little fatigue. But about 6 days after being in that gondola and having come back and showing up at work, I thought I just had a little jet lag. The thing hit me, and I got suddenly just cold all over. I couldn't stop shivering and shaking. And that's when it really hit. It was my first day back at work after having spent a couple of weeks in skiing in the Rockies. So that was not a real fun thing to come back to. And my coworkers came in and they looked at me and said, you're not looking so good, Doc. Better get over and get tested. The story was just breaking at that point about the COVID coming in to the U.S. and also it was starting to show up in the high country in Colorado in a high number of cases. So I went right over and got tested, and 24 hours later I had a diagnosis that I was positive.
And then so this was back in early March, mid-March?
Yes, this would have been on the 13th of March.
And then how long did it take to get over it?
It took about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to finally get over it. After that shaking came in, which is when the virus is really taken over your body, that was a pretty rough week. I felt like I'd gotten hit by a truck at that point, and I think I slept I think I slept for the most part of 4 or 5 days. I lost 8 pounds in 7 days, and food just tasted horrible. You've heard people are hearing more and more about that as one of the key symptoms, and even the finest Chardonnay tasted like sour vinegar, and that was a very profound part, as well as the fatigue and just the general malaise that this thing hits you with.
Let me switch over now to Karen Tan with Child and Family Service. What kind of impacts have this had on families here in Hawaii? I mean, you folks deal with a lot of family stress, right?
Yeah, we do. I mean, Child and Family Service has been around since 1899, 121 years old, and we've seen, our community struggle with many different crises, and this one is probably one of the most challenging ones that I've seen. And I think what we've seen is a lot of families who didn't expect to be without work are really struggling to make ends meet. And so that's probably one of the biggest challenges right now. In addition to, being asked to stay at home and isolate is really hard for people. And we're seeing a lot of mental health needs and increase in domestic violence and things like that. It's quite a challenge for our community.
How, as a nonprofit, how did you manage to put together the resources to deal with all these people that were suddenly coming in?
Well, what's been great, what's really great about Hawaii's community is how much everyone comes together. So funding from various sources like the Community Foundation, various banks, various donors, private citizens, really has been streaming our way to help us respond to the needs. And so one of the things we did that was really great for the community was we created a Festival for Hope for Families, and that was in partnership with First Hawaiian Bank. And we brought families to our campus. They drove through. They received lokahi bags full of fun activities for families like games and puzzles and bubbles and also information for resources. We also screened and helped to support families during that. So we asked them if they had needs, and we provided assistance immediately for those needs. So it was in addition to the food and other things. But, it's really neat because when we put that together, so many community businesses came forward. We would come to them to offer to purchase product, and they would say, no, just take it. We've got extra. It's one thing that makes Hawaii so special.
Michelle Kauhani from Hawaii Community Foundation. Karen Tan mentioned your organization. What kind of resources have you been able to bring to bear on this, and where has it been coming from?
The Community Foundation launched our fund in March. We've raised just over $11 million, and we've deployed about $9 million into the community since the start of the virus. As Karen shared, we're seeing, prior to the coronavirus, the Community Foundation had worked on what we called the change framework, where each sector of our community had some data that really was driving where we were placing our resources, that highlighted the inequities, some of the gaps and opportunities on where we could be supporting. I think now, as we face the coronavirus, those inequities are exacerbated, and we see greater need and greater divide in many areas, and escalating needs in specific pockets of the community in certain geographies. And so we've tried our best to focus the resources where they're needed the most, based on a 4-phase approach that the Resilience Fund uses. I'm grateful that, Josh, I'm thinking about our lives post disaster for the flood and the Volcano Recovery Fund, and we partnered by developing MOUs with the different counties and creating what we call strong funds for each of the counties that had this 4-phase process set up so that we could respond quickly. And that's really been the backbone that's driving our ability to move quickly, to deploy capital where it's needed, and to be able to respond effectively to the needs of community.
Let's look at this graphic that we have, Michelle Kauhani, of the use of the Hawaii Resilience Fund. Now, where did the money come from again? And how did you decide how to break it up?
So the 4 phases of the fund were already designated in an outline that we had planned prior. So phase 1 is really around readiness. And for COVID, that was all focused on flattening the curve. that what could we do to flatten that curve so that we wouldn't put a burden on the healthcare system. So we focused a lot on partnering with the health clinics prior to them getting a federal support so that they could do testing and quarantining and serving kupuna at home, keeping high-risk populations, the homeless, as best as we could get them served. So phase one really focused on that aspect. Phase two was around rapid response and recovery, and there we did lots of support to food banks. We primarily focused on food banks who were supporting the pantries, and then also got dollars to local community groups who were doing food drives and getting food out to individual families. We also did emergency assistance grant funds with nonprofit partners across the state to get emergency assistance to families who were all of a sudden unemployed. Once the federal CARES Act dollars came in and took care of that, then we pull back and we focus on the next area.
Let me
phase three. Mm-hmm.
Can we interrupt and go to Josh Stanbro here, because what I saw in the color scheme that was on that graphic was, a plan. It reminded me of the plan that the state government has been putting out with different colors and different actions. Josh Stanbro, you're very much involved with this kind of planning. To have a plan like that in place before something hits, like it seems like the Community Foundation had, how important is that, and how difficult is it now cobbling it together in the middle of it?
Well, it's a whole lot easier to cobble it together when you do have something in place. I can't even imagine how much harder it would have been if we didn't have, the funds set up. Michelle is making me relive, I think it was a year and a half ago when Hurricane, I don't even know which one it was that was coming at us.
Lane,
we
maybe?
were down in the call center trying to figure out how could we scramble together to put together a fund in case it hit, so that we could tell the rest of the country, how to get funds in to Hawaii. And thankfully, we HCF, the Community Foundation, didn't let it drop. Even though that we did a near miss with the hurricane, we had this idea about, how do we put together some stuff up front so it's ready to go. And thank goodness, because, with COVID coming, there was already a plug-and-play mechanism between all four counties and the Community Foundation to help really align our interests.
Would you call it a plug-and-play? What does that mean?
Plug and play. I mean, that's when you just plug it in and it goes, as opposed to having to build it, from scratch. And so, there's a lot of stuff that goes into those agreements and designing those, the different phases and making sure the MOAs, went through, lawyers on every side. It was several months of work. There's no way we could have put that together in the, 2 weeks of the crest of COVID coming our way. And so having that in place for, both COVID and any other disaster that comes our way, the strong funds are there, the Hawaii Resilience Fund is there, the networks and the relationships between, whether it's between the county partners and the Community Foundation or the nonprofits like Karen, that are working day to day. It's always better if we can put resources into existing channels, into existing organizations that already have the relationships, they have the clients, and we can just beef that up rather than trying to invent something from scratch. So this is why Hawaii is a special place, is all those relationships are there, and you can build off of those strengths and just pick up the phone and try to get something moving right away rather than just introducing yourself for the first time.
I'm going to change the subject very slightly and go back to Dr. McCaffrey, because not only were you a victim of the virus, but then you were sort of also an economic victim. Can you describe what happened with your employment situation?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of, as we were talking before the show, it's kind of a tribute to this virus and the way it has slammed into our culture and our economies. That really nobody's job is safe. I had to be furloughed from my private group medical practice that I was with because they just simply couldn't afford to keep me on the books and had to lay me off. And as we were talking before, doctors, particularly in private practice, their income is down over 50%. Some even down to about 40% in terms of revenue. Your ability to capture revenue through seeing patients And even though we have telemedicine that we're doing a lot more of these days, that is reimbursed at a lower rate as well. So the combination of those two forces have created a tsunami that's washing over particularly private practitioners here in Hawaii, which about 50% of our doctors still are. And I think as we were talking before, I think that's a story in and of itself.
Are you struggling with the fact that is this the first time you've ever been without employment?
Yeah, yes, for a 40-year career. But it just shows nobody is immune to this COVID. Really, it's and I have to give a shout to the Hawaiian people. If you look at the pain that so many have been through economically, and the great job that they've done in terms of masking up and keeping their distance. I'm with Josh. This is I'm very proud of Hawaii through this ordeal, and I think we've got an opportunity, particularly if we can solve the difficult challenge of how we're going to get tourists to come back in safely for us and them. We're going to have one of the safest spots on the planet to come vacation if we do it right, and I see a lot of opportunity ahead.
Michelle, you wanted to say something?
About the unemployment, I think that's what Corona has really brought to our state is that there are many. Prior to coronavirus, we knew that 48% of our families, according to Aloha United Way's ALICE report, were living paycheck to paycheck. And we were really hyper-focused on that. And as Dr. Scott shared, we now have a whole new population of folks who have never been on assistance, have never gone to the food bank for support, have never needed to apply for unemployment insurance. And so it's been a whole new group of people that this is new to. And so there's a lot of need for those services that folks are not familiar with, right? Never applied for unemployment, never got public assistance. So it's really a whole new group of folks that are needing services today than prior to the virus.
You know, I do have a viewer question here that goes to that point. We're talking a lot about organizational money flow. We talk about unemployment. You know, unemployment. I've spoken to people who are just now getting their checks after 6 to 8 weeks, and it's these huge checks, and they're But the question for the viewer is the money raised only for Hawaiian organization, or is it available for anyone? With all this, is there a source of money that just is a grant? Like you could walk in the door somewhere and say, "Look, I got no money in my checking account. I have no ability to pay anything." Is there a place that any of you could identify for people who could just go with an emergency need like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, our CARES money, the federal money hit our account here at the county, at the City and County of Honolulu about 5 weeks ago. And so in a very short amount of time, people have really tried their hardest here at the city, county to stand up a bunch of different feeding operations, testing capacity, small business relief. And then there is this one individual relief fund that Mayor Caldwell and the administration have put $25 million towards. If folks go to oneoahu.org, that is really the main center, information hub for all of the city-related COVID information. And there's a resource link there where they can click through to get to the agency to put in an application, and that's for rental, assistance or utility, whatever the individual needs might be. They can apply there.
Josh, is that one Oahu?
Yeah, it's ONE Oahu.org.
ONE. Okay, that's my question.
Spell it out.
Yeah.
We are one.
Josh, I was just on that.
This is my graphics.
I was just on that website today, and I have to say it's really well done. It's easy to navigate, and I think it's going to really help people. I had not stumbled upon it until today, and it's very helpful.
I understand that, and we've had a lot of conversation about this, about how confusing all these different orders are, about what business can do what, and what you can do and what you can't do. And I understand, Josh confirmed this for me, that website also has a lot of information like that on it.
It does. Mm-hmm. So we stood the website up in about 2 days after when that first order came to basically shut down the economy and have the shelter-at-home orders. And we knew people were going to need information in one place, that they were going to have questions. And so on there, we actually have all the different orders that have been posted. They're kind of mind-numbing to read through, though. So if you go to the FAQ page, if you go to the frequently asked questions page, that's constantly being updated with like real human speak rather than lawyer speak, around what you can do, what you can't, how many people can get together, the businesses that are open and what isn't. And we always welcome feedback. If folks have, questions that they can't find the information on oneoahu.org, they can always call the city call center at 768-CITY, or they can email COVID response at honolulu.gov, and be able to talk to a live person to try to get your question answered.
I don't want to be too Oahu-centric here. Michelle Kohani, is there similar websites for services on other islands?
There are service providers on other islands. I think the Aloha United Ways 211 can connect you to their neighbor island affiliates. The Maui Economic Opportunity, MEO, is running programs. Catholic Charity is doing it. Again, I think One Oahu is a great resource for Honolulu. I do want to make a plug for one of their small business relief funds that's being operated, and the information is on One Oahu, to remind our nonprofit sector that you too are small businesses and you qualify and should be applying, because we see the help that those dollars are giving to small businesses, but there's a very slim margin of nonprofits applying, and just want them to be aware that they are small businesses that are eligible for those resources.
Karen Tan with Child and Family Service, what kind of supports have you had to apply to the unemployment issue? What are you seeing people going through when they find themselves in this situation?
Well, I think the first thing is kind of similar to what Michelle was talking about is, families don't have savings. They are living paycheck to paycheck. And so because of the delay in getting the unemployment, now it's starting to finally come in. But during those, 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks time, they were really struggling. And that's why I think the food lines were so long. And I know one family that came to our event said, both her and her husband were unemployed, and they just didn't have their checks yet. And so it was really kind of a desperate situation. Now that the unemployment checks are coming in, then it's sort of the reality is sitting in where, there aren't a lot of jobs. There's still huge unemployment. And then what are they going to do? And so really it's kind of helping them figure out what's the next step. They're also trying to school their children possibly. That adds stress. And then also, probably caring for their kapuna. I know for me, it's like my mother is not leaving her home. She's older. She's a more vulnerable population. So, shopping for her every week, it adds stress to the families. And so what we're trying to do is just give them a lot of support and resources for the emotional side, because the money's finally coming in to kind of sustain as is. And some families may have gotten forbearances or other things, but all of that will catch up. And then, we're kind of looking at a perfect storm. I also think for nonprofits, we're looking at, the potential of funding cuts at some point here, and the needs are rising. Like I said, our event, we served, out of the 600 people that we served, over 400 were brand new to us. We had never worked with them before. So, the demands are so much higher, and yet, the resources are slim. So we're really trying to find that balance and how we can keep providing the services while the demands are going up.
Dr. McCaffrey, when your practice discovered the drop in revenue, what kind of stuff was available for the company other than letting you go? Were they able to access any other sources of revenue or PPP funds or anything like that?
I think they did. They applied to the SBA as well as the. I don't know all the details, but I know they reached out everywhere they could. Nonetheless, they had to lay others off. They had to cut back salaries on some, and it was been very, very stressful on not just my practice, but so many other doctors. And I also wanted to take a minute to talk about the fear that is food insecurity. Of course, is horrible in and of itself, but what the local population has been through, just living in fear of whether or not they're going to get the COVID or not, and or with their loved ones, particularly those that are more vulnerable, whether they'll make it through. If they do, I don't think we can overstate. To that, I would like to encourage everybody to go out and get tested for at least the antibody to it, even if you don't have any symptoms, or if you even had a hint of a sniffle over the last 2 or 3 months, and or if you were around anyone that you know ended up having it and testing positive. Because there's a large pool of people that have already had it, and they can stop worrying. In addition to that, I think we need to tap into that pool of folks to be potential donors for convalescent plasma that can be given through the blood bank. And they're all ready to go down there. It was one of the first things I did after I recovered from being ill from it, was go down to the blood bank and gave enough plasma in one sitting to treat 4 patients that could possibly be on the brink. So that is, I don't know if you folks watched the 60 Minutes show on Sunday, but there's a lot of exciting things going on with the plasma treatment. It's one of the few treatment options we have. And for those 2 reasons, you don't have to live in fear if you've already, although no one will tell you that you've got 100% immunity, there's a really great chance that you're partially immune at least, and have a lot less to worry about if you just know that you have the IgG antibody. I'm encouraging everybody to do that.
Okay, Josh Steinborough, one of the tasks that you're doing, I'm going to get back to food security a little bit later, but one of the tasks that you're doing with the city is standing up some testing programs. Can you tell us what those are, and is what Dr. McCaffrey is suggesting something that people could actually do yet?
Yeah, so actually, Hawaii has been able to increase test capacity over the past couple months, Mayor Caldwell and the rest of the administration here really believe that testing is at the core of being able to reopen the economy and keep it open, that we need more testing capacity. And so the city's been working with different partners to have the drive-up testings. You got a picture of it right there, perfect timing. So you can see that folks are able to get tested at these different testing sites. We've also working with the community health centers. We've given grants essentially to the community health centers to boost their telemedicine capacity, but also boost their ability to do testing with the local labs. There's I think 7 community health centers around the island, and anybody who's feeling at all symptomatic or thinks they might have COVID can certainly turn to the community health centers with the city support to do that. We've also struck a deal with the University of Hawaii to stand up a lab that we've been needing for decades here, so we don't have to send offshore and have a long turnaround time. So we'll have the capacity to have about 100,000 tests by the end of the year. Both the antibody that Dr. McCaffrey was talking about, 50,000 of those, and then 50,000 the nasal swab, the one that's painful to do but good to get. And so they'll be online as well. So we should have the testing capacity that we need as long as nothing spikes. So knock on wood.
Yeah, let me ask.
Yeah,
you.
I was just going to say, I think city and county, Department of Health, so many others have really stepped up with testing, led by a lot of community physician leaders. Dr. Miskovich being one of them, of course, with his services out there for testing. So I couldn't agree with him more that I think we can test and mask our way out of this if we're smart and do it right.
Let me follow up with Josh Stambro, though. Explain to me, and maybe Michelle Kauhani, you could also help me with this. What is the importance of testing going forward when right now we've got so little of the virus in the community, or seem to have 1 or 2 cases, very few hospitalizations now? What's the purpose? What's the going forward purpose of having that big test capability?
Well, I think, the fact that we're opening up the economy, we're reopening it, thanks to the sacrifice. I mean, Dr. McCaffrey, really hit the nail on the head. Our community has sacrificed a huge amount to get us to this place where we really have low levels. And so, that sort of discipline and that willingness to think, as one and about we rather than me has got us into a really good spot. But in order to stay there, we're going to have that testing capacity, because you think about the frontline workers out there, whether you're a bus driver or a hotel worker, restaurant server, you're in contact with, grocery store, clerk. you're in contact with hundreds of people a day, and so your risk is much higher. And so we want to make sure that those folks feel safe, secure. If they need a test or they need multiple tests to make sure they feel safe in the workplace, we need to have that capacity, because if people feel afraid, they're not going to show up, and we can't get back to resume sort of and build a resilient economy again. And so that's where it's really at. And I will say that we're getting tourists that are coming in. You see the numbers climbing slowly but slowly, and hopefully the quarantine will stay in place until we're fully ready to open up with some testing capacity. But folks coming in, you can see what's happening on the continent. Folks are opening up, numbers are skyrocketing. As those folks come into the community, there's going to be spread, and we've got to be ready for that.
Let me ask Michelle Kauhani. Go ahead. What's your
I was
perspective
going
on
to say
testing?
the other important reason for the testing and carrying through to make sure we have resources for that is that there are so many people who are asymptomatic, and so they're walking around and could be infecting other people because they don't have any symptoms. And so it's just good to know. People have been home in isolation for a long time, and as Josh said, we've done a great job. That isolation also raises other issues around mental health and domestic abuse. And so testing is the key for that safety to feel secure so that we can get the economy going again.
On that subject, I do have a question. We did an interview with the governor just yesterday, and he was talking about how alarming, there's this tremendous upheaval in the country now surrounding the police brutality issue and all of these marches. God bless them, but you look at the kind of contact people are having in all these multiple states where there's multiple cases. The governor expressed a real concern about, we've got to kind of watch what's going on there on the mainland before we start open the door. And so, this is a question from a viewer. If there's a spike in cases on the mainland and it takes longer for tourists to return to Hawaii, how fast can unemployed residents get financial help? And what this brings me to for Karen Tan or Michelle Kauhani, you guys have expended this tremendous amount of resources. Yes, the city's got money. Yes, the state has money. But the unemployment, the 600 up that people are getting is going to go away. The PPP, the Paycheck Protection money is going to go away. How prepared are we sort of the next wave where these benefits start dropping off? Michelle?
Yeah, that is a huge concern. When these benefits start dropping off, we are seeing an unemployment rate like we have never experienced before. I think we are trying to support the nonprofit organizations as much as possible. To getting a one-time grant or grants for a short period of time is great, but there is really a need for wraparound services so that families have the true supports that they need, because financial instability is very real. I think that there's going to have to be more dollars at different levels, and that public-private partnerships are powerfully important right now. We're very grateful for our donors. We've had some tremendous givers, the Bank of Hawaii, First Hawaiian Bank. Just a lot of individual donors are in philanthropy and our businesses. It's what makes being from Hawaii such an incredible blessing, that it's beautiful to watch people come together. But the needs are great, and we're going to have to bind together more than ever before. But there's a real road ahead of us. I feel good about where we're going, but the needs are definitely there.
Karen Tan, have you seen that kind of next wave of uncertainty? That is, people have been backfilled up to now, but then there's another cliff ahead?
Oh, definitely. Even my employees, we have close to 500 employees across the state, and even they're wondering, are we going to have jobs? It's like, some businesses may have been holding on, and so we may see more unemployment. My hope is that that's not the case. The idea of giving people resources and hope for the future is where we're focused on, and it is really hard because it is going to be a long journey. But like Michelle said, there's so much aloha here. There's so much coming together that I know that we will pull it together and we'll figure it out. it's just a journey we have not had to do before, so we're all learning about it.
Josh Stabro, the question from a viewer, how are they dealing with food security on food that is shipped in? What I'm wondering about is, have we learned about our food insecurity issue? We do have a graphic about how many people were feeling food insecurity before this happened, which is 11.3% of residents. That's 140,000 people, 150,000 people were already experiencing food insecurity. Now we've got another 250,000 probably on top of that. Are we in a position to be able to keep feeding people? I mean, is the resource there to keep the food flowing and then eventually get the local industry capable of fulfilling our needs?
Well, I think this highlights a couple things. I mean, one is there's got to be more assistance coming from the federal government. It's mind-boggling that we're this deep into it and with this amount of insecurity, and that there hasn't been, another tranche of funds. We hope to be ready to receive and to help when those hopefully come through. I think just earlier this week we talked about setting up a economic revitalization center, recovery hub to work through some of these issues and build the capacity to help. We talked also about. I want to give a shout out to the Food Network and to the folks that have come together, the local farmers that have all pitched together, because a lot of those boxes that have been distributed at the different food distribution centers with HCF's help and with in partnership with the county, those actually came with local produce in them. And so, if we're if we're serious about honoring what people are saying out there about we want to build back better, Uplift Hawaii and Aina Aloha and the Women's Commission, they put out these calls for let's take a moment to think about how we build an economy that is more sustainable and is more centered. All the businesses that have stepped forward in this time of need are local businesses, and so we got to really think about, when we build back the economy, who do we support, who do we know that is going to be around for the long term, and how do we make sure that when we spend those dollars, those CARES money, that we spend it up with a local farmer so that dollar stays on island, and then it may cost a little bit more, but it's so worth it to make sure that we're doing double service with those aid dollars. So the food bank has been great about working with local ag, and we want to make sure that we ramp that up if at all possible.
Michelle Kahani, you had a fair amount of money at the beginning of this. More money has been coming in, but are you folks in some danger of kind of running the spigot running a little dry if this continues for much longer?
I think that's a risk for all of us, right? There's always more need than there are resources. We continue to answer your question, I didn't quite do earlier. The original dollars came from the grant-making budget that we would have normally put out to community, and so the first $1 million was transferred from that grant-making budget to start the fund, and then donors have come in a remarkable way. Our normal grant-making dollars will have to pivot towards addressing the needs of the nonprofit sector to address COVID, and so we have some bandwidth, but yes, we do need to continue raising dollars to have enough resources to meet the needs of our community.
Dr. McCaffrey, a question for you from a viewer, and I'd like you to broaden this out a little bit. It says, working in occupational medicine, how has COVID changed the way you help patients who are, say, on workers' comp? I know you've been laid off, but still, you were talking a little bit before about telehealth and so on. Now, it's not enough to sustain the practice as things are, but how is it for the patients? Are people learning how to access care better than they had before through these technologies? And how has it changed the patient's aspect of access to care?
Yes, well, it's actually, I think it's showcased how telemedicine is a viable option under these circumstances. Of course, nothing takes the place of a doctor visit from my standpoint professionally. I need to, particularly in musculoskeletal injury recovery, which is a big part of OCMED. Most things are injuries, most work comp, especially in this state. We don't have a lot of chemical industries and so forth. But in order for me to really do a good job for the patient, I need to get my hands on the patient with a good physical exam to back up whatever imaging or the history and so forth to be accurate, and also just there are things you gather in encounters with people that don't come through as good as our technology is getting here, but it just doesn't come. There's no substitute for a face-to-face meeting. So as far as the patients themselves, of course, if you're out on a work comp injury, you don't have to deal with are you safe at work. From the employer standpoint, employers are really grappling, depending on what industry you're in, of course, some more than others, but the hospitality industry, the food industry, of course, bars and nightclubs, really how to be able to get people back together safely, because that's all about getting together. And if just to go on one more moment, I want to encourage everybody to not get mask fatigue. One reason we've done so well here in Hawaii is because everybody masked up. You see, Hawaiians very smart people, and I think we had a little influence from our Asian countries and our visitors from there that masking is okay. So you don't have this. Nobody's politicizing it here. It just makes sense, and it's one reason we're staying ahead of this thing at this point. So let's not get fatigued in that in any way by following examples on the mainland. Let them follow us, and let any visitors that come to Hawaii, let them see how we conduct ourselves so that they mask up so we can get tourism going safely.
You know, since you brought it up, we always get lots of questions about exactly that subject, and here's one that's right on point there. Residents have sacrificed financially for the past few months. We need to set up protections for residents by testing travelers before they come to Hawaii, including returning residents. How is it possible to reopen hotels when guests will be forced into confined spaces such as elevators? Josh Stanbro, I mean, how involved are you in that conversation, and are we really ready, do you think, to begin inviting tourists back?
You know, I think we need to have a test regime for folks that come in. Every person that comes in ought to be tested, and I know Alaska is doing that now. I think it's a good model, it's a strong model, and it gives some sort of assurance and security to all the folks, again, the frontline workers that are intersecting with folks. You know, there's a 14-day quarantine right now. You know, if there's a way to test and get a negative result, that can be shortened, and people can get to their vacation. I believe that people will feel better about taking a vacation and being in a place that they know is safe, and maybe spending a little bit more money to make sure that they test and that they're safe, rather than spending 14 days in a hotel room. And so it is imperative, I think, that we don't open until we are ready, and that there's the structure in place to make sure that everybody's tested so that we can keep our rate low here. It just costs too much if we don't.
Karen Tan, I'd be curious as to you're dealing with so many unemployed families, people who are unemployed in families, and we're talking about the dropping off in benefits. Do you feel some urgency to get that part of the economy going? I know your job is to protect people, so it'd be difficult to say, but can you understand how people are starting to get very anxious about getting this industry back up and running again?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think everyone wants to see our economy get back on its feet. I think it's just a matter of doing it safely and making sure that, you know, we're taking care of our families here as well. You know, we have sacrificed a lot. We've done very, very well. You know, we moved all of our staff other than our residential programs remotely very early on. And we've done great success via telehealth and had some, you know, just some really good things happen with the families that we serve. In fact, our attendance is even more better because of being able to join things virtually for some appointments. But, you know, I think as we move forward, the economy has to open. You know, it just has to. And I like the idea of testing. I think that's important because if we can test before people come, then they can immediately start to influx the community with their money and buying things and eating out and doing the activities they want to do rather than sitting 2 weeks in a hotel room. My daughter comes back from college finally next week or a couple of weeks from now. And when she comes, she's going to be quarantined in our home. And she's not looking forward to that because she really wanted to hit the beach. But she's willing to do it because she's a local girl who understands the importance of keeping our island safe. And so, I think everyone's been taking their part, and we need to see what it's going to take to get us back open and then get people back to work.
Michelle Kauhani from Hawaii Community Foundation. The tail end of the graphic that you showed us, it has to do with the future more, doesn't it? And what kind of things are you folks working on to help us prepare for what will be the new Hawaii economy? Are you folks involved with that?
Right now, there are lots of conversations. Josh mentioned a couple of the papers that have been put forth by community organizations from the Women's Caucus, from the environmentalists, Native Hawaiian groups. So we're taking all of that into consideration. We've done a significant amount of outreach to the nonprofit sector to really put some parameters around where are we going to go, where are our resources best used to fill the gaps in the next phase of this. We know some of it will be for social impact investments, that we know families need long-term loans, access to capital that's more than just these short grants. So that's one issue, but we're really thinking through that. And phase 4 takes us back to resilience. Again, how do we prepare our communities, the nonprofit sector, so that we have partners for not if, but when the next disaster hits, that we're ready and we're able to jump back into action. And so the next 2 phases really focus on longer term resilience and recovery and stabilization, and then back to rebuilding resilience, which I think then we're looking at our normal grant-making budget for the Community Foundation and getting back into the swing of things. We hope that can be sooner than later.
Okay. Josh Stambro, I mean, you're the one with the word resilience in your title. So what does a resilient economy look like as opposed to the economy we have now? I understand that we have basically a monolithic economy right now, but that has to change somewhat. But realistically, how do you make an economy change? Doesn't an economy naturally follow the money?
Yeah, I mean, I think another local boy, Barack Obama, said that, the presidency reveals who you are, it doesn't change who you are. And I think COVID has sort of revealed a lot about Hawaii in terms of, people coming together, the resilience of people, but it's shown how not resilient our economy, that structure really was. And so there's been so many calls from across the community to build back better, to try to really act on the decades of calls from folks to try to invest in, local entrepreneurship, local technology, sustainable agriculture, green energy, all the things where we have natural sort of advantages and we can actually build some self-sufficiency so that this doesn't happen again to this extent. And that's what, the Office of Revitalization will be looking at doing here on Oahu locally is how can we invest now with every dollar we spend to try to build that more resilient economy and push us in that direction. And we're ready and willing to work with the Community Foundation, work with other companies in town, with the Chamber of Commerce, to really think about long and hard about what do we want to come out this looking like, and how do we make sure that we're stronger after this. We know how much people have suffered. I mean, it's incredible what's going on out there, and I think the biggest crime is if we didn't learn a lesson and set ourselves up for this kind of vulnerability again in the future.
I hate to be cynical, but maybe I'll let Dr. McCaffrey be cynical. What happens when you hear this kind of talk? I mean, do you believe that we're actually capable of changing that way? I mean, you've been in this economy for a long time. You've seen it. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've always thought of myself as an optimist, number one, but it is easy to become cynical after what the world is going through and what we're going through here locally. That said, I think we've got a wonderful opportunity to take some lemon juice and make some real lemonade. If we can enact, that's a broad vision that Josh just laid out, but I think it's one that if not now, then when are we going to get traction going in the direction he's talking about? And I also think that we've got a great opportunity with aggressive testing, both before people go to the airplane, before they even step into the airport, before they come, and then after they arrive here, a couple of more 3 days in Waikiki. Hey, they kind of do that anyway, right? I think we've got a real opportunity here to have a model for the world on how to test safely while still letting people come in, and an opportunity that because we're so isolated, to actually make this a reality. Where in the mainland, people can drive in from every direction, from a neighbor state, pretty much. So I think we've got a real opportunity here to showcase what can be done.
Let me ask though, let's just use your industry, medical care, as an example. I mean, how do you see it changing, expanding, growing, fitting into the new economy? Are there ways that medical care can be a bigger part of our economy? I know it's a significant part, but it's still nowhere near competing with tourism.
I don't think we've ever really realized the vision that so many have had going back for a couple of decades, all the way back to Jack Lewin's days when he was the head of the Department of Health, that this should be, there's the thing called the Pacific Rim, and here we are, we're really the hub of the Pacific Rim. And I don't think we've ever fully realized the potential to be a medical hub in that respect, although there are visionaries that are working in that direction. And there's no reason why that can't become a reality as long as we can gather the collective will to do so.
I want to bounce this back off Josh Danbro one more time. Is like, what are we going to do different this time that we haven't done before that's going to get us to that diverse economy?
Well, I think it's a matter of where we invest, and that's everybody. I mean, I think it's the philanthropic community. I think it's the government. I think it's individuals. Where do you shop? Do you shop local? Do you patronize local farmers? Do you really make that a priority? I mean, we can do it. It's just a matter of will and making sure that that we're putting our assets where our values are. I mean, I think we. I don't want to be Pollyannish about this. I think tourism is always going to be a huge part of the Hawaii economy. But how do we, is there ways to do wellness tourism where there's, a way to partner the healthcare system and develop the health piece along with the tourism sector? Is there ways that we can potentially, we don't know how long COVID's going to be with us. We want to break groups into smaller, pieces. Is there ways to do individual group tours for folks? 10 people at a time to our most precious places that have just been overrun, honestly. I mean, we had 10 million visitors. If we think back a few months, it wasn't like it was great. It was, people were being pushed to the max and housing prices and everything. So if we look at building local housing for local folks, right? I mean, that still generates jobs. It may not generate the same amount of revenue, but it still generates jobs. If we look at how do we make sure that tourists are in responsible numbers in places and are being maybe guided or escorted by folks who know the place and can explain the cultural relevance to them. Those are ways to try to get more dollars to stick, even though we may not have the same numbers that we had before. So it's not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I think it's about combining our strengths in Hawaii with tourism and making it actually a stronger product for people coming in and a stronger economic producer for us here in the island.
Karen Tan,
I would like to, I would like to add that, a couple of years ago, a company had a big convention here, and they reached out to us, and they said that they like to give back to the community where they go. And this is a first. Most of the time, companies come in and they don't do anything but just stay in Waikiki and do their, convention. But they came to one of our areas, our programs, and did renovations, replaced the flooring, painted. Like, they actually gave back to the community. And so becoming a destination where you can enjoy and appreciate the cultures and the people and getting more, hands-on in the community is also a beautiful way to recreate who we are as a tourist location.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, though, for your perspective of helping families, Karen, is we haven't had a really family-friendly economy. We've got people need 2 jobs. People are driving in traffic or spending hours getting to work or driving all the way across town to get their child to a private school where there's a public school right nearby. Do you have hope that whatever emerges will actually be a more family-oriented economy?
Yeah, I absolutely have hope for that. I think families staying at home right now, working from home right now, I have heard that there's been great opportunity to be connected to their family, their kids again, really seeing and experiencing them at lunchtime, throughout the day as they're on breaks. I'm hearing even my own staff saying, I don't really want to come back to the office. I'm doing quite well working from home. And I'm saying, do it. If that works for you, why sit in 45 minutes, an hour's worth of traffic and when you don't have to. And so I do have hope for that. And I think, even before, we are so Ohana oriented. We've got so many families coming together, having, parties and luau's, and despite all of the challenges, they still find that time. But we don't want people spending a majority of their time in traffic, a majority of their time, transporting and getting where they need to go. We want them spending quality time with their families. I would like to say that for families that might be struggling right now, we do have a couple of resources I'd like to share.
I'm out of time.
That's okay.
Very
It's
fast.
okay.
Really, really fast.
Okay, very fast. We have a parent line. It's 526-1222, and that's available, as well as a domestic violence hotline, which is 841-0822.
Okay, got to stop. Thank you very much. You can find more information on the data gathered by the Hawaii Community Foundation's Change Framework and the Resilience Fund on their website, hawaiicommunityfoundation.org. Mahalo to all of you for joining us tonight, and we thank our guests, Michelle Kauhani, Senior Vice President of Community Grants and Initiatives for the Hawaii Community Foundation, Karen Tan, President and CEO of Child and Family Services, Josh Stanbro, the City and County of Honolulu's Chief Resilience Officer, and Dr. Scott McCaffrey, an occupational medicine physician who survived COVID-19. We're off next week for Kamehameha Day holiday. Insights will be back on June 18th with the kickoff of our election 2020 coverage. We'll start with the top candidates running for Honolulu Mayor. Please join us then. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha.